So Jeffrey did a good job at bringing you basically the history of optimization from the early mid 90s till pretty recently. But what I want to do today is talk to you a little bit about big data and where that's going to take the world of optimization. I think it's certainly going to change a lot of people's jobs in this room. So I was going to play a video, but obviously I can't. But the video is a clip that introduces a television show that became popular last year. And the name of the show is called Person of Interest. I don't have it playing in the background. It's not very loud anyway. But what the show was, it talks about this scientist who built a computerized machine that gathers all the telephone conversations, all the information from all the cameras out there. And the U.S. government was using it to detect acts of terrorism, right? Who was going to be a terrorist? But what the machine was also good at doing was detecting not only terrorism, but any possible crime that was going to happen. And so the guy who was a scientist couldn't live with himself knowing that the government wasn't going to act on all this great data he had about all these crimes that were about to be committed. So what did he do, being the genius that he is? He found a way to hire a vigilante who would go ahead and be able to protect the people who were about to be involved in those crimes. And I think this really tells the story of big data or any data in most companies today. You're lucky if you can find a genius in the organization who could figure out what the data is and what you can do with it. Maybe you can build, some interesting tools around it. But the hard part is even finding the vigilante who will then act and do something with the tool. Or even find a company that's willing to pay attention, just like the government wasn't willing to pay attention to what's in the data. The nice thing is the tools that are coming out, the technology that's evolving. And, but Jeffrey told you earlier, I founded the Web Analytics Association in 2003 with the hopes that marketers are going to become data-driven. Hasn't happened, right, in the last 10 years. What I think will happen with this next generation of tools is it will allow us to return back to the days of a David Ogilvy, where marketers could be more of the mad men, right, more of these creative guys, and not have to worry about the data. The data will be there, but it'll be there in the background. It'll happen for them. See, unlike most of the rest of the world, unfortunately, in the United States, most marketers are numerically illiterate. They don't understand numbers. You put a spreadsheet in front of them, they literally have to get the calculator out themselves and punch in numbers. They can't think mathematically. It's a big challenge for most marketers. And so to balance the two of being analytically driven and creative is not a very common trait to find. Luckily, things are definitely changing with the technology. Let me give you an example. Let's see how good you guys are. So there's a company that was looking at product purchases. And they had found everybody who purchased cotton balls also purchased these calcium and magnesium vitamins. And there was a whole group of people who did this. Being marketers yourselves, what do you think this group might be? It was women, you're right. Did you read the story? Okay. For those of you who don't know the whole story, I'll give you a little bit more information. They also found a third product that they bought in common, unscented baby lotion or hand lotion. Okay, so what group of consumers is this? New mothers, women who are just finding out that they're pregnant. So Target was the company that did this, and they made themselves basically in the first pages of the New York Times, because what had happened, their data scientists came up with, hey, we're finding this group when they buy cotton balls, calcium, magnesium, and then the unscented lotion, they're buying baby products just a few months later. So why don't we go and we'll send them coupons for baby products, and we'll lift the sale of baby products, and we'll have them buy it from us at Target. It's a great idea, right? That's targeting. Small problem. They sent this to the house with a young lady who was in her teens, and her father was very upset. And he called up Target and he said, "What do you mean sending my daughter stuff about having a baby. She's not pregnant. She's not having a baby. Yes, she was found out later on, of course, she was pregnant. And Target learned, well, they can't push things so much in people's faces. So in that book with the coupons with all the baby stuff, they also put other things like toys and house cleaners, and all the other things they sell. But this is the point, right? When you can get to the point where you can find those little patterns in the data that you can target people effectively and give them the right message at the right time, right? You can get people to respond. That's what great marketing is all about. That's the promise from Peppers and Rogers when they wrote their book, One-to-One Marketing. Okay. This doesn't happen very often. And it actually takes quite a group of data scientists to actually pull this together. And they haven't figured it out for every group. They figured out a few patterns. But what is a data scientist? What do they really do? So, interesting, the head data scientist for Twitter has a blog. And he explained what data scientists do by analyzing the menu at McDonald's. And when he analyzed the menu at McDonald's, looking for all the different clusters of groups of food products, I'm not calling it food products, something like food, they found 11 different clusters of items on the menu. But he found one cluster there that had only one item in it. And it shocked him. Now, it was the only item, by the way, that he considered healthy, which was interesting to note. Even though one of the clusters that did not fit that group was the salads group. The one cluster that he found that was the healthy cluster was this cluster number 7, which was the fruit and maple oatmeal. And this is what a data scientist does. They look for the patterns of grouping together out of all the noise out of the data to see what makes sense to put together, right? What patterns will stand out. Great story on this came out of the elections in the United States, where Nate Silver, I don't know if anybody heard his story, but he went ahead and he predicted the outcome of the election 50 out of 50 states. He knew exactly the amount of votes, exactly how they were going to go. In 2008, he got
49 out of 50 states.
He got 49 out of 50 states. So his data and modeling is getting better and better. And there's actually an interesting article about him today talking about how he uses all the same data, but he gives different weight to them on the unstructured side. But this is what data scientists do. Let me give you another example of what data scientists can do today. I think the ladies will really appreciate this one. So there's a website called the Pin-Key Color Forecast. You just do a search for color forecast, you'll probably find it. And what this company has done is they set up webcams in Paris, Milan, and Antwerp. And all day long, they look at the colors of clothing that people are wearing. And so by the hour, by the day, by the week, they can tell you the patterns of clothing that are popular in those particular cities. And then, of course, they show you items from those colors from their store. It's an interesting use of big data that they're leveraging. So, of course, this is something that you may be able to do. If you have a store somewhere, if you want to do something like this, you can play around with this kind of data. And I think it's an interesting little model. But really, where big data has gotten popular, and I think why it's gotten so popular in the United States, probably has nothing to do about marketing, has everything to do about Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt starred in the movie called Moneyball, based on the book Moneyball as well, and it talks about the manager of the Oakland A's baseball team who decided that he had to find a way to compete with teams like the New York Yankees, which is where I'm originally from, who would spend $200 million a year on their team, and he was only given a budget of tens of millions of dollars. He said, how can I compete with a company, right, that's spending so many more times than I am? There has to be a different way. And he built a team based on something called sabermetrics, which said if we look at a different set of numbers than the traditional way of putting together a team, we can find a way to manufacture as many runs as the Yankees were doing. And of course, they went ahead and they started winning championships, and that's what it's all about. But it's not only the Oakland A's that have done this. Organizations like the Texas Rangers have also done this. By the way, that's me modeling one of the rings. They're heavy, by the way. And it's a lot of diamonds. And this wasn't even the championship. This was just the league championship. This wasn't the World Series for them. But what they have done is they took the original sabermetrics and have gone beyond it. They've been able to work it out so that it's manageable in an organization. One metric in every level of the ball club. Everybody understands it. It's proprietary. They don't share it with anybody. But all the managers know how to use this metric, and they have a rating for every single person, and they know how to put the teams together based on those ratings. It's really pretty incredible, the amount of data. And baseball has always been a very data-centric thing, but with the use of technology and rethinking it, big data has become very popular. And as marketers, big data is essential. Why? It's being said that today, every 2 days, we're producing more data than the whole world has created from 2003 till the beginning of time when we started recording data, whatever year that was. Every 2 days. Okay? How is that possible? Just to put it in perspective, in 2010, every person generated 800 billion gigabytes of data. That's enough to give every human on Earth a MacBook Air and fill it every single day. How many of you want a MacBook Air every day? Me. But why? Why is there so much data being created? Well, obviously, we know the internet has caused most of this. There's 639,800 gigabytes of global IP data transferred daily. Things like YouTube videos and comments and tweets and Facebook updates and mobile data and location data. All of these things have made, and all the pictures around there, right? All the video that's being uploaded has tremendous amounts of data, and it just keeps growing and getting faster and faster and faster and faster. And as marketers, we need to figure out what to do with it. Now, when we think about marketers and data, the lessons go back a long time because we've seen a pattern of marketers' behavior with data repeating over and over again. So my good friend Jim Novo, who I co-authored the Marketer's Common Sense Guide to E-Metrics with in 2001, the little e-book that the first book we printed on web analytics. He talked about this when he saw this in the CRM world. But he said this also happened in the ERP world, right? There are people who are very resistant to start adopting the technologies and the metrics when they start being able to collect very basic customer data about, you know, where things were being purchased and how they paid for it and all of that. In CRM, we were able to start doing some segmentation and support issues and keep lifetime histories of customers, right? And the data grew. And then all of a sudden we started getting web analytics, and the data grew even more. We had weblogs, and we have A/B testing and dynamic pricing and behavioral targeting with tools like BT Buckets for free or Monetate on the enterprise level. But today, you can get things with RFID sensors and sentiment analysis from tweets and from surveys and external demographics and interactions of the social graph. And right, it's just the amount of data that's being created, it has gotten huge. And that is actually the definition of big data. Big data, when you ask data scientists, they'll say it's the 3 V's of big data. It is volume, how much data there is, variety, how diverse the data is, and the velocity, how fast the data is coming at you. Okay, I like to explain it much simpler. It's big. Lots and lots of data. We saw how much the data is. It's unstructured. The simplest definition of unstructured is the data does not fit in a spreadsheet. Right? A tweet will not necessarily fit in a spreadsheet. You can't make sense of it in a spreadsheet. So you need other tools beyond mathematical tools. And lastly, it's happening in real time. And you need to be able to react to that data in real time. Right, and just think about the big data that's being used for mapping weather patterns today. Right, it's the same kind of things. If you can start detecting patterns, and this is what happens with Amazon. Right, they were able to detect a pattern that Michael Jackson was dead. Someone on their team was able to catch it. As soon as they detect the pattern, confirm it, they make changes, they launch it. How many millions of dollars did they capture that day when companies like Walmart and all the other companies who sold music couldn't react fast enough? That's the value of big data. Now, why is it also exploded? Some of the conditions have enabled it. First, the storage costs have gone down, right? I mean, I think back to my first computer, the Atari 800 I had bought, and it cost $400 at the time, a 10 megabyte hard drive, which was this big. It weighed probably about 3 kilos. Okay, I mean, it was a very heavy machine. Okay, and think about it. I mean, most of us have memory cards in our phones tens and hundreds of times larger than that was, right? And that's only in the last 20 years. Right, and it just keeps getting cheaper and cheaper. Network access, the amount of people that are connecting to the internet and to data is just increasing tremendously. CPU costs and the speed of processing. Right, we weren't able to process big databases as fast as we can today. Today, with technologies like Hadoop and R and MapReduce and all that, we can process things faster than ever beforehand. And of course, bandwidth costs are getting cheaper and cheaper. Not at our hotel here, but everywhere else, they're getting cheaper and cheaper. Now, when we look at it, and as I mentioned beforehand, the first big story of big data success, I think, is Amazon. When Amazon first started selling online in 1994, 1995, they said, okay, we're going to become the world's greatest bookstore, biggest bookstore. They were competing with companies like Barnes & Nobles and Borders and Walmart, all these companies that were huge, multi-billion-dollar companies. And Amazon had raised a few tens of millions of dollars to start a business. They had no right to be as successful as they were today, but they were smart. They were able to catch on to a number of trends early on. First, they enabled the reviews, right? And we know social commerce, how big it's become. Everybody looks at reviews today. They were able to catch it early. But what made them most successful is they optimized everything. They started pioneering A/B testing in 1997. Okay, we were doing it from beforehand, but as a company, they pioneered it. But they optimize everything from what warehouse every item is, so they know that when you come from a particular warehouse, how fast it's going to get to you, and if you order, what likelihood you are to order something else that's also in that warehouse, right? Because they want to make sure to group things as fast as possible. They optimize price and cost for every little detail that they do. Okay, and that is what's made them so hugely successful. There's a great presentation online, and this is where these slides are from, called "How Amazon Dominates E-Commerce." And you can find it and you go through all the slides. But they've been able to figure out how to, like I said, every little detail in real time optimize. And this is the actual page that Amazon put up right after Michael Jackson passed in 2009. Okay, it was tweeted at me by someone who noticed it just shortly afterwards, and that's what's so amazing, is how fast that they were able to do that. Now, Amazon uses big data in more than just how fast they react to market conditions. They're using it all over their website, and what I want to show you is some of the things they use it for on the website. Let's just look. I'm just going to look today at a product page. They use it all over their website, but just the product page. Okay? So let's look at the first thing. First of all, the green line is the fold of the page, right? The first part of the browser. So let's look at everything above the fold. So the first thing they do is they tell you here, you want it delivered Wednesday, May 16th. Order it in the next 3 hours and 44 minutes and choose one-day shipping at checkout. So they know by your IP address, or if you're logged in, where exactly you are. They know what inventory they have of that product is in which warehouse, and they know how fast they can get it to you and at what cost. Okay, that's big data. That's big data. They're using those information. And whenever you see that information on their site, that'll probably give them a 4 times lift to conversion when they can pull this information out. Okay, so huge benefit over every other company that can't do that. Okay, let's keep looking on the page. Well, this is a common one now, but they were the first to know that if you bought this baseball bat, you were very likely to buy this batting tee as well. So customers who bought this also bought that. Okay, then they were able to look at more data about what percentages people looked at, and they show this now as well. Okay, and then as we keep going down the scroll, Oh, sorry, wait. You'll see here they have a whole list of related items, right? And these are related search terms that they're using, right, to bring you back other similar items that you may be interested in. And I'll show you why this is important in just a couple of minutes. You'll have to bear with me. But this is a very important technique for search engine marketing that they've done as well. Okay. Now, Amazon isn't the only one that's battling for big data. They know how valuable it is to them. This is one of the reasons they came out with their Kindle device. This way they can give everybody a great device that costs them almost as much money to sell to you as you are buying it for. But they know they can get more buying habits. They can get the reading habits. They can get more data about what people are doing. But Facebook is in a big battle for the information graph, especially around the social graph. Microsoft, of course, is looking at it. Google is looking at it all over the place. Apple's looking at it. As I like to tell reporters, Google knows more about most people than their spouses or their therapists do. They know everything you've ever searched for, to the point where they can even connect it down to the router that you're on, because they've already been able to associate your login with the router that you've once logged into. So even when you log out, they still know it's you, or someone close to you, most likely, right? So if you just think about the amounts of information they have. Now, so we know we're getting all this explosion of data. Everyone's participating in social marketing, all this. And so chief marketing officers are very concerned about this. No, actually, the data explosion is their number one biggest concern today, according to an IBM study of top chief marketing officers. The second one is social media, and of course they're both related. The third one is the growth of channel and device choices. The more we fragment and more, how many of you, let's say, how many of you have desktop computers, right? Keep your hands up. Desktop computer. How many of you have laptops as well? Keep your hands up. How many of you also on top of the laptop have like an iPad or a tablet computer? Raise your hand. And then how many of you have mobile phones? Now how many of you have started thinking, I need a mini device as well? Right? Just think about it. How many more devices? And each one presents different information and different challenges. And the more computing power we have, the more complicated it's getting for them. So what do chief marketing officers do? They go to the office of the chief information or the chief technology officer and said, look, here's my problem. What are you going to do about it? And so the CIO, the chief information officer, says, no problem. What we're going to do is we're going to invest in BI and analytics tools. And I've seen this before. And Jim Novo has seen this before. This is what happened in ERP. And this is what happened in CRM. And this is what happened in web analytics. It's completely the wrong approach. See, whenever you think about, and Jeffrey actually talked about it also in his presentation, whenever you think about marketing technology, you always have to think about the tools, but more importantly, the process and the people, right? The biggest problems with big data and being successful is, number one, data that lives in silos. So not only the organization works in silos, but a lot of the businesses, what's in the retail store can't speak to what's happening on the website, can't speak to the people who are doing the social stuff. So it's very complicated to put all that data in one place. Then the organization has to be agile enough to be able to react from that data. And then, if they're lucky, can they really do this all in real time? Not very likely. And you have to hope that the organization wants to be an organization that has the appetite to learn and adapt. Doesn't happen very often. Technology doesn't solve the problem. When I see the people talking like this, it reminds me of South Park. The episode with the underwear gnomes. Anybody ever see this? If not, you can just Google it and you can see it online, underwear gnomes. And in here, they're going to start a new business. They're going to collect underwear from all over the place, all the little gnomes. That's phase one of the business. Phase two of the business, they don't know. Phase three of the business, they're going to make profits. And so when we hear people talk about big data, they're like, okay, phase one, we're collecting lots of data. Phase two, they don't know what they're going to do with it. But phase three, we're going to have insights and results and profits. And because of all of this excitement of big data, you know what has happened? In the last 2 years, and by the way, this is already outdated. Every month this gets outdated. There's been an explosion of big data tools. and tons of investment in big data tools. And by the way, there are a lot of great companies out here. I'm going to talk to you about a few of the tools, okay? But a couple of the ones I think will excite you. So one of the ones that you'll want to play with, and I don't actually even know if they're even on here yet, okay? There's a company called Animetrics. So Animetrics was built by the same people who started Website Story, which eventually became part of Omniture and all of that. And what they've built is they built a new tool that allows you to bring in all the data, right, and look at the customer from a lot of different views. So really, it kind of really helps you merge all that data easier than ever beforehand. But that's one. Another one of my favorites is a company called Alteryx. Okay, and Alteryx, what they're doing is they're looking at data as a completely different thing. What they want to do is build the apps around the data that already exists out there and allow you to bring your data into it as well. So, for example, let's say you want to figure out where in Moscow you should open up your next store. They can go ahead and pull up all the data they have about Moscow and your community and your audience and all of that, and tell you which is the best locations based on the data that's there to open a store. And then if you want, as a part of their service, right, you can upload your data about your let's say your past customers, and very simple model, they're building apps from all these big data sources. So you don't have to be a data scientist. They're making it much easier for you to do that. So I think that's an interesting one. But like I said, there are tons and tons and tons and tons of tools out there. And I just want to talk about a couple of interesting ones. But remember, this is not about the tools. At the end of the day, just like I learned in 2003, and yes, that's me in 2003. I was a little over 40 kilos heavier. This is what happens when you get rid of an agency. You get to get back to life a little bit. But what we learned then is that, look, people needed to learn to become data analysts, to think this way. And the Web Analytics Association, Digital Analytics Association, we have a couple thousand members around the world finally. And it's great to have that. But the problem is the skills for a data scientist are very, very hard to find. This is what Drew Conway says is the skills for data scientists. They need to have some hacking skills. They need to have some of the business kind of skills as well. And they need to have the math and statistics knowledge. So how many of you know people like this currently? Maybe a couple, right? It's not very common. And the sad part is McKinsey is actually predicting that by 2015, we'll need over 150,000 new data scientists. It's not going to happen. The nice thing is we're seeing some very interesting technologies from all around the globe. And big data is going to be a global thing where companies all over the world can benefit and be in the business of big data. We're definitely going to see a lot of this. But when I look at big data, what I see are 4 different types of tools. The first type of tool is called analytics, right? Just reporting. I have all this data. How do I get into one dashboard so that I can report on it? This is what Josh James is doing, who is the founder of Omniture with his new company Domo. This is what a company like Animetrics is doing. There's a bunch of them. The second set of tools is what I call the predictive analytics tools. These are the companies that, like Target, they start recognizing patterns and let you know that there's a pattern starting to happen. You still need a human to figure out what it all means, but they can start identifying patterns. So that's somewhat of an intelligence built into the tool. The third type that really excites me as well is the data-driven automation tools. So how many people here have heard of companies like Rich Relevance? Right? What they do is just like Amazon, companies who bought this also bought this. They're doing some of those personalization. They can put, with a little bit of code on your website, you can get the same widget and all the same data that Amazon has, just like that. And so they actually do take that intelligence in your data, and they basically automate and put that little thing there. Okay, that's easy enough. And then the last one, which is the one that Jeffrey and I like to call the magical tools. Almost like when we first started even till almost the very end when we were consulting, people used to come to us, and Jeffrey would get off the phone and say, "Do you know what these people really want? They want a black box that sits on their server, and they plug it in, and it just makes them money. They don't want to do any of the hard work."
I still want one.
I still want one. They're going to come out with the home version of one, okay? Apple has it in the works. Oh, no, this is the other way around. They take money from you every year. Forgot. But these tools, okay, there are these new set of tools that they're machine learning. They look at what's happening, they adapt again, and then they do the work for you. And I'm going to show you some of these tools. You're not even going to believe what some of them can do today. And I just want you to think about where this is going to be over the next 2, 3, 5 years. And this is what excites us. So let's start with the first one. The first one is a reporting tool. Now, how many of you here do some form of web analytics? Raise your hand. Okay, great. So let me ask you a question. How many of you work for a company that sells online and also offline in the real world? Okay. So how many of you get reports about what's happening online and give it back, the data, to the stores in the physical world so they know people in that area what they were doing for, what they were searching for? Don't worry, they don't do it in the United States either. When I asked, there was one hand that ever goes up in a conference. One person, yeah, it's like it almost never happens. Okay, so we're not doing the basic thing, which is what we should be doing, because obviously demands in different parts of the city and different parts of the country could influence what items you put in a store. Makes sense, right? If you know that, you would change things. Well, there's another company that does the reverse, actually. What they can do is they can take the cameras that people have for security in the stores, and they put a server in the back, and their servers will analyze all the video in the store and create almost like web analytics for your store. They know what aisles people have been in, how much traffic has come to your store, where they spend time looking at things, what they walked with and what they didn't look at, and of course where there's been conversions and where there's been sales. And then what they do with this, they take all of this amounts of data, all this video, which is obviously very complex, and they're doing, gigabits of information every second, essentially, and loading it up into their machines. Over 57 petabytes of raw data every day, okay? And what they can do is, this is just one example, they can produce heat maps of where people are going in the store and what they're engaging with. Right, a heat map like this almost. So they know exactly what items should be in what part of the store, and people can move things. And some of the stores, and this is still a very relatively new company, it's a company called Retail Next. And what they've seen is stores like American Apparel, same store sales have gone up by more than 30% just by being able to move things based on having that data, right? This is stuff we've been having in web analytics forever, but in the retail world, it was the person in the store who kind of knew or didn't know what was going on. Now that you can have real data about what's going on. In fact, the store, Family Dollar, redesigned over 1,300 of their stores based on using this data. Right, so very, very powerful. This is just one example of an analytics tool. Okay, let's look at another one of these tools. This one's kind of a really interesting one. How many of you are doing any kind of marketing with content? Maybe you write articles, you create videos, you create infographics, pictures, or anything like that. Some of you? Okay. If you've done any kind of blogging or anything like that, you know, or even if you've ever had a mention in the newspaper, media has a very short attention span. It lasts maybe 72 hours, most of it coming within the first 24 hours. Actually, there's information that just came out this week that the half-life of a Facebook post is less than 30 minutes. So the time that people are paying attention to media is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And so what this company did, this company called OneSpot, is it said, look, we can take all of your content or any of your earned media. Let's say you've got an article written in Forbes magazine or in the New York Times or whichever publication out there. They can then take all of that media and automatically, by machine, create these dynamically generated visual ads, display ads. Okay? And they can test and optimize the image and the headline dynamically. The machine just knows. And of course, it can A/B test it to figure out which is the one that gets the most click-throughs and the most views and all of that. It could then also figure out where the best place is to spend on those ads. And this is what those ads actually look like. And they don't look like ads. They look like another piece of content. And so people are actually clicking on it because people online do want to consume content. Lots of content, okay? And And what this machine does is it's typically seeing click-through rates on their ads of about 0.8%. But once you've clicked on one ad and they can start retargeting you, they're seeing click-through rates of up to 10%. Okay, pretty incredible. And again, it automatically optimizes the ads and the spend based on what the machine is learning. And they've done this for companies like Dell, okay, and you can see the kind of growth they've had with this program. They've done it for companies like Remington, which sells a product to remove hair. Okay, they've taken all of these articles, and once people have clicked on one article, then they'll start using more advertorial type articles that start selling the product a little bit. Now here's another company that's kind of interesting. Remember I showed you on the Amazon page the related searches? Well, here's a company that took that same idea to the next level, and you can now use it yourself. What happens? Someone does a search for something like cooking steak on a Staub grill pan. Now, Williams-Sonoma might have a picture of steak cooking on the pan, but if the marketer didn't put an alt image tag or name that image, something like that, it's never going to be found in the search engines. Okay? So the photo is great, but it doesn't necessarily mean the search engine can find it. So what happens? This company, Bloomreach, collects all the structured data about your products. It'll go in and read your product feed. It will also go out to the web and collect unstructured data about your products, what other people are saying about it. It will then interpret it using natural language processing techniques, prioritize your terms and from a long-tail, short-tail perspective, and adapt pages by either routing them to an existing page that they're modifying, or they'll create a new page that they can perfect based on click-through and purchase behavior. Then they analyze it and they go all over and over again. So what would happen is they go ahead and they now search all this and they create all these related searches. They were able to create a site structure that, because they're using PHP so that it's naturally crawlable and feels like part of the website, to create a page that now has, within one click, a way to cook steak on a Staub grill pan. And now that page is found. And so they've been doing this for companies like ModCloth, where 60% of Bloom search generated traffic represents new customers, okay, which they wouldn't have had otherwise. They've had a 40% increase in natural search visits. And what's more interesting is companies like Neiman Marcus, and this is what I think is so critical, is within less than 6 months, they've generated 143,000 new pages that are driving traffic and sales. How long would it take you to create 143,000 new, contextually relevant pages? Right? That's what's so incredible about a technology like this. Okay? And they're working with companies that have at least 1,000 pages or more. Okay? So here's another one that really, really excites me, because I know, based on seeing all the data I have from companies that we work with in the PPC space, most people never test their pay-per-click ads. Never happens. They don't have time for it. Right? They're just trying to match bids. They're trying to make sure their account structure is right. It's hard. And Google and the search engines every single day are changing their algorithms in order to be able to get the maximum yield they need out of your spend for their businesses. And so literally, we as marketers, as humans, are competing against their machines to get the most effective ads. Seems like an unfair fight to me. So what companies like Datapop have done is they have figured out that they can take a look at all the information about your product, its attributes, the competition, the device type that you're looking at, the location of it, the changing quality score algorithms, all this different information, okay? And what they can do is they can dynamically recreate and re-optimize and regenerate every single one of your ads until you have the best performing ad out there, okay? And what they do is they do this at scale. Because how many of you change more than 100 ads a month? Right? Most people can't do that. They're changing thousands. I saw one hand go up. Right? They're changing thousands. And that's the beautiful thing that they can do. So for example, and here's what's an interesting case study from them. They were working with a company called Bag, Borrow, or Steal. They sell handbags for ladies. And this used to be the ad for one of their competitors, Amazon, right? Who has some of the similar tools as well. Handbag Louis Vuitton, buy handbag Louis Vuitton at Amazon, qualified orders over $25 ship free. And this was the ad that Datapop was able to generate for Bag Borrow Steal, and they were able to get tremendous results out of it. Okay, Louis Vuitton handbags in 18 colors, like turquoise and red. And so now the machine has learned, whenever you're selling, and the machine will keep testing it, high, premium priced fashion items, test to see whether we should be using color attributes as something in our ads. And if they test on a few more and it doesn't work, they lose that rule. But they can keep using as one of their combinations to keep testing. And it does this in incredible amount of scale. They can do hundreds of ads every single day. And this is just a cycle that you can see what they go through, right? They can also change the ads based on which device you're looking on. So if you're looking at your phone during the middle of the day and in a particular location, they can offer you one thing. If you're looking at it on your computer, they'll offer you a different thing, and they can optimize it all on the fly. And this is one of the biggest challenges I see marketers facing, especially this quarter, right? Trying to deal with holiday shoppers as they're looking at things on multiple devices. And so this is their optimization cycle. They can change things daily based on your product feeds and stuff like that, weekly, monthly, seasonally, annually, right? You can't keep up with this. No human can, but the machines can. They can write ads just as good as people can today. Almost as good, but good. And when you need to do thousands and tens of thousands of ads, no amount of humans are ever going to help you do that. So here's another interesting company that uses big data. There's a company called Runa. How many of you give coupons out on your website? A few of you? What they found is when people give site-wide coupons on their website, when they give up 10% discount in margins, they basically only achieve 8% back in sales. But the marketer thinks, okay, if I don't make it back this time, I'll make it back on the next sale. But the thing is, every single time you have to give more and more discount to get these people to buy, and each and every time you get less and less margin, so it actually costs you more and more money in the long term. So what Runa does is it looks at over 90 variables on the fly, even to the way you're moving your mouse, to determine whether you qualify for an ad or not. And they give out only these personalized ads, and they'll only give up to 3% of your margin, but they'll generate over a 19% increase in sales. Let me show you how this works. Very simple dashboard. You tell it, here's the maximum discount I'll ever give. Okay, great. Then you tell it, okay, are there any types of special categories of products that we should and shouldn't look at? Great. You identify those. Are there any places that we should exclude, like your call center or your affiliates? Great, we'll do that. And then you can start saying, okay, all the different pieces, and you can start seeing how they start getting results. And what they figure out is they have a number of different options they can offer you. They can offer, just like Amazon offers dynamic pricing, they can figure out the perfect discount to give you. Amazon figures out, based on where you are and what warehouse it is, if the item qualifies for what they call their prime shipping, which is their fast, free shipping. Well, Runa can do that as well. They can figure out the perfect bundle of combinations. Not only do you buy this with that, but at what price in order to get you to buy it with the most margin. And you can also pay with like credit card points or travel points and stuff like that. And so this is what their dashboard looks like. You can actually see what aisles people are in, who is actually getting an offer and who's not, the current lift and all of that. And this is what it actually is doing. So let's say someone lands on an Neiman Marcus page, it'll look at the referring URL and see exactly what you searched for. It'll look at the terms you used. It'll look at the number of search terms you used, where you are geographically, how much time you're spending on the site, what your pattern of browsing is. Remember, Jeffrey talked about people who are methodical or people who are quick and responsive. Everyone reacts a little bit differently. What products you viewed already, what items you might have added to your cart, how much the cart is worth, and then they can figure out if you've bought from them or not in the past. They can go into your CRM. Then it decides, what is the likelihood that you'll buy with or without an offer? And then based on that, they can figure out what offer to give you. Is it best to give you a 2% discount, 5% discount, 10% discount? Is it best to give you a free t-shirt? Is it best to give you a gift card? Is it best to offer you free shipping? And then they carry that all the way through the shopping cart. And like I said, depending on the category, they see huge lifts in sales based on this. Now, how big is their data? They started off as a plugin for Miva and Magento stores. They were using hundreds of stores to put this data. Then they were asked to see if they could scale up to work for a small company, eBay. Okay, and they're powering eBay's fast and free product offering, and they're going to be doing a whole bunch more. And again, it's just a huge amount of scale that they're doing billions of records, every week. Okay, now let me bring this back into practice. So when we look back at the Amazon example I showed you earlier, you can see the same tools that are out there today that you could use almost for your own business. Okay, or you can start adapting them for your own business. So let's say you do a search like I did for my son, who loves to play baseball, he's 7 years old, for Little League bats. Now, Amazon may not have the team to write every single ad because they have millions of products, but they have a machine that generates their ads for them. So this is the ad that they came up with. Whether it's the best ad or not, I'm not going to argue, but they had an ad there. Okay? And that's what something like DataPop could do for you. They can take every single one of your products, figure out based on the attributes, and test and refine all the best ads for you. Okay. Then, when you get onto their category page, and you look at all the different details that are going on here, the first thing they would do is you'd have a tool like Monetate, which would allow you to test what is showing up on what parts of the page. Right? And Monetate clients are doing 50 plus tests a day. They're doing over 200. So you need a tool that allows you to test like Amazon is doing. Then you need reviews, right? And this is something like bus5 does. And every company now practically is using reviews. It's become one of the most important things to have out there. Then you want to have all these related facets about where people are searching. You want to make sure you have the ideal landing and category page. And this is something that Bloomreach could have created for you because maybe you didn't have one for Little League bats beforehand. Then you want to know to make sure to show the right items together here, and you could use tools like Rich Relevance to kind of bundle those together. And then you could use a tool like Runa to figure out whether you should offer free shipping on these things or not offer free shipping, or what items you could put together. Okay? And then again, we come back to the product page, and you can see here Monetate in the background, testing every element and where it goes and all that, and what's showing up there. Here's the fold again. You got bus5 right at the top, showing you your reviews and what you could do with your social data and all the social commerce information out there. You got Rich Relevance putting your bundle together of what items belong together. But you've got Runa deciding on what's the ideal price and whether it qualifies for Prime. The best price for the bundle. And it's also letting you know that you can get a free offer with this and you can have it shipped to you by a particular time. This is all happening by technology like Runa. And then as you keep going down, now you can have, again, Monetate testing things down below the fold as well. But Bloomreach is creating all of these related searches and self-optimizing these and the landing pages ahead of them so that people can find you for all these long-tail terms. And then as you keep scrolling down on the page, you could see, again, Monetate everywhere, bus5 having all their reviews, Rich Relevance showing up with items people have viewed, and again, I mentioned Runa and Bloomreach as other technologies. So these are just some of the tools that are out there. And like I said, there are literally hundreds I'm uncovering every week. There's a technology out there called lattice engines. And this one's for salespeople. And what it does is it lets you know all the research that the salespeople should be doing. Oh, this company just hired someone for this department in this company. They're probably going to need a computer and this and that, and they know based on, or if they open up a new location, who to speak to. All that information is being gathered by big data by a company called Lattice Engines and providing it for the salespeople. And they're seeing tremendous responses. So a lot of great technologies out there. But how are you going to get prepared for big data? So I want to leave you with 7 steps for your success in big data. The first one is, don't get caught up in all the hype and all the language that people are talking about there. There is real value in doing this. You don't have to do it just for the sake of doing it. You have to do this intelligently, and we'll talk about how in a moment. 2, the most important thing about any data-driven marketing is to ask the right questions. What are the questions you need to, and problems you have that you need to solve? The data exists somewhere, whether it's inside your organization or outside your organization. If you have the right question, you can figure out a way to get it answered today. Most of that information is out there. Then what you need to do is figure out exactly where that data exists, whether you own it, whether you can rent it, whether you can plug it in from somewhere else. And these are things like Alteryx will let you do. They have some of these data sources out there that you can play with and map it into your own organization's data. Then you need to prepare your organization to see the new landscape. This was probably Jeffrey's and I biggest mistake as conversion rate optimizers when we first started. We didn't prepare companies to see how the future was going to be based all on this social mobile experience and how fast things were going to evolve, and our organizations needed to adapt to do it. And they needed the tools to allow them to be agile. Hasn't happened. And so now we're talking to CMOs about being agile. They're feeling the need to develop good content. They're feeling the need to have great experiences, especially on mobile. But we could have done it and should have done it 15 years ago. But now we're telling you this big data, this is an opportunity for you to do that. Number 5, the best way to prepare them is to share these case studies of others, people using them successfully, like the color forecast and other stuff like that. There are a lot of good articles out there. We're definitely writing about it. And you can look at some of their other people and how they're using big data today. Number 6, even if you can't find your own data scientist or someone to build the tools, don't worry. Keep looking for these tools in that last category that I talked about, the automation and black box tools that'll do the work for you, like the data plops and the Bloomreach and the Runas, where they do all the work. Once you get it set up on the server, and it usually implementation's anywhere from a day to a couple of weeks, or 6 weeks at the farthest, you never have to look at this again. It'll self-optimize and correct itself and make you money just like plugging it into the server. That's the dream we want to have. And then lastly, which is the most important thing, I think we've written a book about the same title, right? You've got to always be testing. You've got to be open to experimentation. You've got to be open to new ideas. Because once you fail to learn and adapt, you're just like a dinosaur. You're getting ready to be extinct. And the most important thing today is to figure out how you can experiment. Don't invest everything there, but you always have to be experimenting the new technologies and the new platforms and new things. It's an important piece, small piece, but you have to be doing it. So I want to wrap up on this. Jeffrey talked about earlier how valuable Monetate has found testing for email list is. And email is still the most critical piece to marketers ever to have, right? The value, and direct marketers always used to say, the money is in the list. Well, I'm going to give you a new motto for marketers today. The money is not only in the list, but the money is in the data. And you could take advantage with some of these new technologies of big data. Thank you very much.
Коллеги, если есть вопросы, поднимайте руки.
Just a few questions.
Да, нас двое в зале. Пожалуйста, вот микрофон у вас слева от вас. Пожалуйста, говорите по-русски.
Говорю по-русски. Спасибо большое, очень много всего интересного. Назовите, пожалуйста, аналоги вот этих всех вещей для русскоязычных сайтов.
Yeah, the first question is going to be, do you guys hear the interpreter or not?
Yeah,
do we have to on stage? You can hear her?
No.
No, can't. Маша, тогда, наверное, придется попросить тебя, да, подойти на сцену. И чтобы не задерживать, the first question was very good. The lady is asking about the tools, if you know any tools for Russian market, which I'm not sure you do.
So some of these technologies work language independent. For example, Runa, I know, is working in France and it can work in other countries. I think Bloomreach is working in a couple of other languages as well. And like I said, I know these technologies are coming.
The obstacle is less the language than them being prepared for it. In the concept of big data, the same way that a search engine doesn't really know Russian or English, right? It's just math. So the problem is one of the market being ready for it. Any of these tools, if there was enough market here in Russia would be available. But I think that they're not available mainly because the market here is not ready.
Right, and more importantly,
let her.
Yeah.
Джеффри сказал, что большинство из этих инструментов никак не зависит от языка, и, допустим, руна существует на французском рынке или на французском языке, я не поняла, и вопрос-то не в языке, то есть можно локализировать, не вопрос.
Я поняла, да.
Да, но это вопрос что это просто математическая модель, которая работает так или иначе. И самое сложное, если на русском рынке не существует инструментов типа руна, то это дело только в том, что рынок к этому еще не готов.
Ну вот я об этом и говорю, что есть замечательные инструменты, они все применяются в Америке, вся Америка использует Индию для того, чтобы делать за них всю работу, а если мы не знаем, индусы еще не выучили русский язык, получается для нас это закрыто.
Да,
Пардон, можно я один вопрос задам для аудитории? Мне просто
да,
интересно.
Уважайте, пожалуйста, остальных, потому что вопросы не только у вас.
Короткий вопрос. Насколько вы считаете полезным эти 2 часа? Вот насколько полезным вот эта информация? Вы же наверняка читали все это и все знаете.
Да,
Мне
кто будет отвечать на этот вопрос?
Вот руки поднимите. Это для вас было очень полезно? Спасибо.
Спасибо большое. Отличный вопрос. Еще.
I want to say one thing. The tools weren't so much as to show the tools ready for the market. The tools were more to show what people are thinking about today, and that hopefully there's somebody in this room here today who will come out and develop tools for this marketplace, even more sophisticated than the ones we're seeing in the States.
Дело было даже не в том, чтобы продемонстрировать существующие конкретные инструменты, дело было в том, чтобы показать, о чем сейчас думает рынок подобных вещей. И, возможно, кто-то из сидящих в этом зале просто придет и разработает свой собственный, который революционизирует весь рынок Big Data.
She translates as fast as you say it.
Да, лучше по-русски, потому что все-таки половина зала, скорее всего, не понимает. Маша переведет.
У меня вопрос к Джеффри. Мы видели достаточно много, такой длинный список инструментов оптимизации конверсии. Есть ли какой-то топ-5, который более-менее универсален, который можно применять практически во всех тематиках?
So there are definitely a number of tools that I prefer to use over others. I think when I teach my course in conversion optimization, what I tell the students is, I want you to try as many as you can and figure out which ones you like the most, because everybody has a preference. So I like a lot of the visual science tools like Fengui. We'll show that tomorrow during the workshop, for an example. I like tools that help me understand word clouds. Right, it's another tool I use a lot of. But again, it depends on what person's perspective and what their preference is for how they want to use it.
Джеффри говорит, что он рекомендует использовать как можно больше, чтобы определить.
I'm Jeffrey. It's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I've been called worse.
Да, что рекомендуется использовать как можно больше инструментов, чтобы понять ваши собственные предпочтения по работе с данным. И завтра на мастер-классе он будет показывать конкретные, с которыми он любит работать. What did you name? Sorry.
Fengui.
Fengui, да.
And word clouds, things that they take all the words and they make them into pictures and how often they're used.
Да, и word clouds, который собирает слова в облака группы.
Да, коллеги, еще, может, вопрос с тестового зала? Да, наверное, один вопрос, и на этом завершаем.
Спасибо. Я заметил, я приехал с Германии, и там очень сейчас очень идет интересная тематика, по-русски называется это невромаркетинг.
Largely just neuromarketing, yeah.
Так вот, она говорит о том, что вот эти все множественные тесты абсолютно ерунда, абсолютно, и что нужно идти с другой стороны и делать в основном только 1, 2 или 3 максимум вариантов теста. То есть как бы нужно сделать определенный макет, он должен быть единственным быть.
So what's the question, though?
The question is, there is a theory in Germany. The Germans are very industrious guys, you know that, and they think that multiple variations that you test, they don't make sense. It only makes sense to have like 3, 4, 5 variations
Right,
of anything.
that's what we said in our presentation.
Yeah.
So we agree.
Совершенно согласен с вами и с этой темой. Кстати, но я думаю, что ваш вопрос не очень был понятен, к сожалению.
Вопрос, какое мнение, смысл есть тогда, получается, это противоречит вашей сегодняшней речи, и некоторые вещи, которые вы сегодня показали, они абсолютно идентичны нейромаркетингу. То есть как визуально выглядела страница после изменения, она идет корректно по нейромаркетингу. И вопрос, действительно ли тесты, это количество тестов нужно?
So I'll be happy to take a first shot at the answer, which is first, we're advocates of less tests, not more tests. In terms of variations, we say first test for impact and then test for variation. I'll let you translate that piece first. So, we didn't go into that much detail today, so.
Мы сегодня не говорили про конкретные детали, но мы рекомендуем, разумеется, делать как можно меньше тестов, сначала тестировать на влияние, на результат, и только потом на разнообразие, если можно так выразиться.
Okay. Second, about the idea of the neuromarketing. Nothing we said contradicts the neuromarketing either. If you'd like to sit tomorrow and spend more time to actually go into more depth, you'd actually see, we speak probably 2 times a year at the German web optimization conferences, and most people are in line with us.
И ничто из того, что мы сегодня говорили, не противоречит нейромаркетингу. Можем завтра об этом, если вы придете на мастер-класс, поговорить как раз как-то сильно глубже. Мы как минимум 2 раза в год выступаем на немецких конференциях, и люди говорят с нами, и там нет ничего такого противоречащего.
Right. One point that we want to make just in general. Today was more about giving people an overview. Tomorrow is very, very hands-on, practical. Right? I want to make sure that people know.
Да, и еще раз нам говорят о том, что сегодня была более теоретическая сторона вопроса, завтра будет более практическая. Друзья, спасибо большое, что вы были. Давайте поаплодируем. И я призываю вас поаплодировать еще раз переводчицу Маши, которая с таким блеском 2 часа занималась переводом. А сейчас, если я правильно понимаю,